It's not just in Canada. The Khalistani case in America is also moving ahead. This one involves Gurpatwant Singh Pannu. We've discussed him many times. He's another peaceful Sikh activist leading a human rights group. I'm kidding, of course. He's a bona fide Khalistani terrorist, a man whose life mission is to break India apart. The US claims there was an assassination plot against him. By whom? Well, according to them, India. New Delhi has been cooperating with the investigation. A team from India is visiting the US today. They are expected to share the investigation details with the Americans. And what are these details? Reports say the Indian team has detained a key accused. The US calls him CC1. This CC1 is supposed to be an Indian government official. Washington says he plotted the Pannu murder bid. But who was he? US media reports call him Vikram Yadav, an agent of India's spy agency. Apparently, he is no longer part of the Indian government. But the big headline is this: CC1, or the key suspect, has been detained. We'll have to see what he reveals. I must say, though, the Americans are putting in a lot of effort in this. That too for a designated terrorist. Imagine what they would do if a presidential candidate was targeted. I'm sure they would pull out all the stops. Except they haven't. Donald Trump has faced 3 assassination attempts. Meanwhile, Washington is focused on Gurpatwant Singh Pannu. He's holed up somewhere in New York, protected by America's laws and ignorance. Chances are the US and Canada are working together on this. They're very close allies and neighbors. Canada is unlikely to make such a move without consulting Washington. Some Indian officials suspect the same. They called it a joint ambush. I'm sure these investigations will reach their logical conclusion. But tonight, we're focusing on the larger issue. How is the West handling Khalistan, or rather mishandling it? You may have heard the classic cliche: one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. The West is applying that logic to Khalistan. Listen to this.
Have an extremely diverse country, and freedom of expression is something that we have, but we will always make sure that we are pushing back against violence and extremism in all its forms.
So we're not going to comment on the unofficial referendum. What I will just say is that broadly across the board, individuals have the right to freedoms of speech, right to peacefully assemble in the United States.
It's not, though, is it? Glorifying assassinations is not freedom, nor is demanding India's breakup or threatening Indian diplomats. This is supposed to be really simple stuff, but the West doesn't seem to understand, or maybe doesn't want to. They have repeatedly shielded these anti-India elements. Just consider Canada. Since 2003, India has sent 26 extradition requests to Canada. 26 requests, that too with evidence. Not Justin Trudeau's imaginary kind, but real evidence that India gave the Canadians. And how many fugitives were returned? Just 6 until 2020. So clearly there is a reluctance to punish Khalistanis, a reluctance that you do not see elsewhere. I'll give you an example. In June this year, Canada declared Iran's Revolutionary Guards as terrorists. The group is called the IRGC. Not some rogue group, it's a legitimate military wing in Iran, like the Army or the Air Force. Many IRGC officers also double up as ministers in Iran. So why did Trudeau designate them as terrorists? Because of politics, because his ally, the United States, has also done it. Do you see the problem here? Khalistanis openly conduct referendums to break up India. They enact the assassination of an Indian prime minister, yet they get a free pass. But a legitimate armed wing of a rival country is called terrorist. It's clear evidence of political motivation. India doesn't do that. Just consider last year's Hamas attack on Israel. Hamas is not banned in India, nor is it designated as a terror group. Yet India called the October 7th attack terrorism because that's what it was. But the West will never do that. Like always, they will tell you who's a terrorist or who's a separatist. The nationalists in Quebec are separatists. Hezbollah in Lebanon are terrorists. The Houthis in Yemen are terrorists. But the Khalistanis in the West are not. They are contenders for next year's Nobel Peace Prize. Well, we've got news for them. Times have changed. The world doesn't have to live by Western definitions anymore. You don't decide what qualifies as a threat to India or what constitutes freedom of speech. Just look at this latest statement by a Khalistani group, SJF, that seeks for justice, SFJ. They're setting aside $500,000 in their budget. What for? To track Sanjay Verma, India's High Commissioner to Canada, the same diplomat who's now been recalled. This group says that they will track his whereabouts and bring him to justice. It's basically an open threat. or as Trudeau may call it, a mildly strong opinion. And look at the money. $500,000 is more than 4 crore Indian rupees. That's how much SFJ is spending to track one person. Where is this money coming from? How deep is the Khalistani pocket? At this rate, we'll never know. We also don't know why the West refuses to see the truth. Maybe it's vote bank politics, maybe it's ignorance, maybe it's a tactic to put pressure on India. Either way, one thing is quite certain, this will backfire. When Khalistani gangs overrun Western cities, when they turn their guns on ordinary Canadians and Americans, then the West will realize its mistake. Hopefully, it won't be too late by then.
Firstpost decodes the U.S. election, explains how America chooses its president. Your primer on the race to the White House. Everything you need to know about how America votes and its global implications. U.S. Election Explained. Every Monday and Thursday only on Firstpost.